brief introduction to the concept of reading tarot cards for those who are interested. Now, I just want to say that I have some very specific thoughts, okay? Tarot reading is not memorizing a bunch of meanings and then reciting them back according to what card shows up. Tarot reading is about interpreting tarot cards based on the language of tarot, learning how tarot speaks to you. So interpreting a message received through the cards, for the message being asked, or general if you're doing general. So again, the language of tarot cards that tarot cards uses includes having different types of cards, such as the majors, which would be something you'd learn more about if you don't already know in a later thing. The minor suits, which vary from wands, cups, pentacles or coins, and swords, which are sometimes given different names. So these divisions, and then also there are also within those suits there are the pip or number cards, and then there are the court cards, okay, which are knight, page, knight, king, and queen, but also those sometimes have different names. But again, what's important is not memorizing, but learning to speak the language of the tarot. All right, so now, as I said, these divisions are part of the language. So as you're doing your studying, you want to divide your deck into the various categories and kind of look through them and get a feel for them. Don't worry about necessarily what some book says or even what they mean. You don't need to look for meanings, because cards don't, in my opinion, tarot cards do not have meanings. Good morning, Hershey. They have possible interpretations, and there are infinite possible interpretations. The wrong interpretation of a card, in my way of thinking, is the card that is inaccurate to the situation of. So, for example, say if everyone agrees Three of Cups means community, and you draw it for a client, and you feel it means something really crazy. I'm trying to think of something that doesn't even have anything that everyone would absolutely say was wrong. Today you're going to meet a farmer, okay? You lay this card down. I'm not doing readings, I'm sorry. And for whatever reason you read, you're going to meet a farmer today. Is that right or is that wrong? It entirely depends on whether or not the person you're reading for meets a farmer today. Not on if you can find one other source that will agree with that reading or that interpretation. You can obviously interpret them in a way where either A, you're not actually interpreting them, you're just, again, laying down cards, and regardless of what it says, saying sort of a preset script. This is the same idea, honestly, to me, as memorizing quote-unquote meanings. You're just reciting. The way to read tarot cards is not to recite anything, but to interpret. So I'm gonna say this a lot. Anyway, what I want to stick to is the language, but I did want to touch on that little piece of what accuracy means to me. Accuracy doesn't mean saying a meaning that's printed in a book. Okay? So anyway, the other parts of the language of tarot include numbers, color, symbols. And those are the main ones, I believe. And then there's also things such as geometry, astrology. This is the Tattoo Tarot. Kabbalah, that can also be overlaid, or if you understand any of those things, or, you know, if you have a specialty card that's tarot of plants, then the symbolism of the plants leads to the way that you would interpret the cards. Not the meaning of the card, but the way that you would interpret it. Hey Google, volume down 1. I wanted a little background, but I think that might be a little too loud, because I know that it plays louder for some reason in the video. Yes, it's really nice. Alright, so one of the main things, also gender. Gender is another part of the language of tarot. So gender comes into play with odd and even numbers. Or certain numbers. That are considered to be masculine or feminine numbers. Also, gender comes into play in the courts, obviously, king and queen, but gender also mainly comes into play in the suits. So we have cups are seen as feminine, and coins are seen as feminine. Then we have wands and swords, which are seen as masculine. Now, I'm not going to go into why, but I do believe it's important to not just accept that, but in your study, you want to understand why that is. Okay? You can think about that, like, for yourself for a little while, you know, when you're first looking through. That's what I think is, when you're looking through your deck, and you know these sort of concepts that you're supposed to be thinking about. I mean, you wouldn't know unless you watched a video like this. But think about knowing that that is a masculine or a feminine card. What would indicate that? What would make you think about it? Now, for example, the wands and the swords are both visually phallic in nature. So the main language of tarot is visual. No, I'm sorry, I'm not doing readings. I'm just doing a short, like, philosophy of learning tarot. Well, I think some things that kind of need to be presented up first that often are kind of skipped, okay? So, just focusing on symbolism, and within that, we also have things like directionality, which way characters are facing, movement, if they're moving, if they're still. You know, we see movement here, we see movement here, we see upward movement here, we see circular movement, you know. So this is part of the symbolism. So the first thing I would recommend is go through your deck, sort it into those broad categories, and then look through your majors and just kind of look at them, enjoy them, and think about how you feel. Like, it's fine, it's okay if you come across a card and you go, I don't like that card. That card makes me feel icky. That card makes me feel tense. That card makes me feel scared or whatever. It's totally fine to notice quote unquote negative feelings. How does this card make you feel? You know, how does this card make you feel? And then, you know, so now you know that the cards are divided into suits. So look through all of the cup cards and see they're for yourself, like what sort of pattern do you see in terms of what do cups look like they might be about to you, right? And here's another thing that's really, really, really important. This is really important, so everyone listen to this. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to be wrong. And it's also okay. Okay, sudden. Oh, okay. I leaned up against the dishwasher and pressed the start button. Okay, fun times. Don't focus on being right. You know, focus on how you feel. When you look at a piece of art and you say, this looks like it's about motherhood to me. You know, are you worried that, you know, some people maybe are worried someone's going to come along and say, no, you're wrong. This is about the agricultural whatever, you know? So remember, it's okay to be wrong, and it's also not about being wrong or right. This is just about how you feel, patterns that you feel. And you might notice, for example, you know, that the cards progress and that they kind of, just the progression. For example, again, we're not focusing on meaning. You're looking through the wand cards, and what you notice is that they just feel heavier and more of a barrier as you go through. They feel like the bigger numbers seem to be just feel heavier. Maybe they don't to you. That's okay too. So it's about getting those feelings and impressions. And you know, some people like to write down their impressions, and that's okay. I think if you do write down impressions, you should just write down a word or two. But you know what else? It's also okay not to write down impressions, because I don't want you to write down your first impression and then marry to it. Don't be married to it. This is not about solidifying. This is about just receiving, processing, accepting, looking, learning how to look. Look at this. 8 of coins is green. You know, are all the coins green in this deck? Every deck is different, but you know, when you're looking through the cards, do you notice that all the coins are green, or that some coins are green? They seem to all be green. What does that feel like to you now? What does it mean? But what does it feel like to you? You know, does it feel like growth? Does it feel like puke? You know, it's up to you what it feels like. All right, so I'm almost done, I think. Because now, see, we haven't even really looked at symbolism. I've mentioned it, but we haven't looked at it that much. Even with these cards do not have like a traditional pictorial scene, and that's okay. It's also perfectly okay to learn with more than one deck. Some people feel like, oh, they gotta learn with one deck, focus on learning that deck, whatever. I learned with several decks. Hey Google, volume 1. We're gonna go all the way down. All right. I learned with several decks because I wanted to learn patterns. You know, I wanted to learn tarot. I didn't want to learn a deck. I wanted to learn what were the patterns, and what was true for like all the decks that I was using. I did learn with all for me, I had all of the decks I started with. Well, my very first deck was completely non-traditional. But that wasn't, I didn't really go into a serious study with that. My first deck, or my first, like, several learning decks, and I had like 3 plus a Rider-Waite-Smith, a basic one for just reference, were Rider-Waite-Smith style, which is helpful, but also not entirely necessary, because, you know, if you come up against conflict in the meanings, you can do a number of things. You can take that and learn, like try to understand why they're saying different things. And that's the biggest thing, is not trying to memorize, but trying to understand. Okay, if you're making a recipe for dinner, you want to understand why you're putting certain things in. It's not about memorizing exactly how much of everything. So you know you're going to use tomatoes and all these certain things to make this sauce. And then you also know that you're using other ingredients that are spices to boost the flavor, so you know that you're going to have a larger amount of tomatoes, tomato sauce or whatever, than you are oregano, right? Because you understand that the spice is there for a different reason and how it works and how it's used. You understand if you're going to use pepper, that you know pepper is, you know, what pepper tastes like. You know you don't want too much pepper. You know how much pepper you want because you understand pepper. Okay. I feel like I'm getting on all kinds of sidetracks, but you don't need to have a recipe memorized. Like, for example, here's an easy one, is tacos. Like, you don't have to memorize a recipe for tacos. You know you're going to need some taco spice, whether you buy spices or whether you buy it in a packet. You know you're going to need meat, and you know you're going to need the wrap, and you know you're going to need toppings, okay? Because you understand how a taco works, and then you understand what you like. So you understand rather than just memorizing. If you memorize how to make a taco, you only have the tacos that you've memorized. Okay, so taco tarot. All right, so now again, we're looking at how, so even these don't necessarily have pictures, but they have symbols. So we're going to talk a little bit more about understanding symbolism. Now, the symbolism in tarot, a lot of times I was disenchanted when I first was learning, because Rider-Waite-Smith, okay, my understanding of symbolism, and everyone I suppose could vary, is the knowledge that symbols have various meanings to different people. But Arthur Waite, he used symbols very specifically, like a white rose always meant purity or whatever it meant for him. A red rose always meant passion or whatever it meant for him, I don't know. But, you know, if you read his keys to the tarot, you'll see that his symbols are like one-to-one correspondence. And it's also okay if you don't know that, even though, you know, if you do a deeper study later on, then you will learn his specific correspondences for symbols. But you can learn tarot without those. And also, too, remember that when you're learning tarot in the beginning, I feel like this is really rambling. I want it to be more concise, but whatever. When you're learning tarot in the beginning, this is also, too, why I want people to learn it overall. When you're learning, you don't need to know every single thing about a card to do a reading, to learn how to read this language. A lot of times, too, it's like suggested to beginners to learn a card a day. Honestly, I feel like a card a day is an in-depth study, okay? that's too in-depth for a beginner. A beginner, I think you need to learn the overview first of all. Learn the patterns, learn the progression. Another thing about the numbers you might notice is there's a back and forth. There's always a give and take. There's like a constrict. The opposite of constriction. There's expansion and constriction, you know. So, also, you know, don't try to be memorizing all this. I'm just giving some examples. So, here's one. Here's the 6 of coins. So we see the coins, we see the color, we see this spiky thing, and we don't know what it means. Maybe somebody does, but we're new and we don't know what that means. We also see some splashes of water, which is interesting. Personally, I have no idea. Maybe it's sweat from work. I don't know. Maybe it's not. There's no right or wrong. We have established. But the main symbol on this card, we see someone giving someone a letter, right? So there's a couple of things you could kind of focus on, the letter or the giving, the act of giving, you know. Oops, I keep bumping that. I don't want to go with a major. I want to look at the minors. This one I did. Okay, here's the 5 of coins. There's a skull. So we generally do think of the skull as sort of a warning or a negative type of sign. And this does look a little bit, you know, we got these flames. So this looks like a little bit of a scary card. And then, like I said, it's fine if that's all you think is. This is kind of a scary card. You don't have to memorize a meaning because you have to learn how to understand the language of tarot so that you can interpret it according to the question being asked and the questioner, and sometimes the positions, if you use a spread. But that, again, we don't even need to talk about that, right? So it doesn't, I remember studying meanings of cards, and a card would mean a certain thing, and then you ask a question, and again, the question, the meaning of the card, they don't mesh, they don't make sense. Readers, new readers come across this all the time. They absolutely cannot make that make sense because they're trying to recite a given meaning. So the point is, again, we're just kind of playfully learning about the language, learning what can we notice, what can we see. Noticing and seeing is important. You know, 8 of Cups, so we've got these hearts, and I don't know why, but this almost looks like the top of an hourglass. But we've got a couple hearts, and we've got 2 divisions of, we've got 4 down here, 4 up here. What does 8 of Cups mean in this card? I don't know. But if someone asks me a question, I can look for clues in the symbolism, right? Again, not focused on being right or wrong or meaning, but understanding. And maybe what will be my clue is these 2 hearts. Maybe what will be my clue is the separation. Maybe it's the like bountiful feeling of cups, you know. I know what 8 of Cups means, but I'm pretending that I don't for right now. Okay? We might say these 2 hearts are separated. They're on either side, right? We might take the heart to mean something you're passionate about. Like if you're passionate about your work, depending on what the question is, right? Again, the questioner. So, oops, the best. All right, 2 of coins. We have this showing us some balance. And then we also, now we can bring in understanding of numbers. Now, people think they get a little scared by numerology, but just think of what you know about 2s. For me, the smaller numbers are easiest. 2s, if you have 2 of something, you know, you could have balance, you could have conflict, you know, you have 2 options. That creates, you know, just think of your own knowledge of what 2 is. as an example. All right, so we have this balance, and we can see how that relates to 2. We also have this. It's kind of a sun and a moon. Again, 2. We have duality. We've got opposites. We've got sun and moon, night and day, left and right, okay? Etc., etc. This one has a little light bulb in the middle. So now, like I said, kind of go through, and if you want to write something down, as long as you remember you're not married to this, it's just your impression, I would only write a couple of words down for them. And if you come up with nothing, if a card just leaves you blank, that's fine. Don't write anything. Or if you're just doing it in your head, if a card leaves you blank, I mean, you can put it over in a pile and be like, these are cards that sort of make sense to me. These cards give me some type of feeling, give me some kind of information I can glom onto, and these cards over here just leave me confused. So what I feel like the book is good for is when you come across a card and you're like, I don't understand this at all. So then look up, then once you've gone through all of them and you know that, and you've got your pals and you can see, oh look, there's a bunch of them I did kind of understand, and there's a bunch I didn't kind of understand. All right, so now you look at the ones you didn't understand. Try again for a minute. Nothing's still coming up. All right, 6 cups. I want to say too, that idea of doing a card a day I think is great, but to me I feel like it's very advanced. Once you've gotten an overview of how the cards work, and then you want to do a deeper study into each card, then for me a card a day works better. But come on now, I mean, you just get your deck and you're excited and you want to look at all the cards and you want to learn about all the cards, and like, do you really want to take 9,000 days to work your way through each card? No, that's an in-depth study. It's not a beginner's practice in my book. I like doing a card a day now way more because I can do a more in-depth study, right? So anyway, back to the 6 of Cups. All right, I look up 6 of Cups. Past connections, childhood memories, old relationships, joy and nostalgia, renewal, new cycle, harmonious networks, positive influences, favors earned in return, blessings passed on, is what the book says. Okay? I know what nostalgia means, but I'm going to pretend I don't, okay? I'm going to pretend I don't, because there's going to be some words you might come across you don't know the meaning of. Guess what? Joy and nostalgia. I don't know what that means. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to look at past connections and childhood memories, just the first 2 to start. And I'm just going to look, see, is there anything, this is what I'm using this book for now, is to help me learn the language of the tarot. So I'm going to look for clues and symbolism. Anything here that could symbolize past connection. Maybe you see something. I'm going to say I don't. I'm just not going to take a long time. Childhood memories, nothing here that really indicates childhood, unless maybe for me, I went to church when I was a kid. Maybe that does stand out. Like, oh, I went to church when I was a kid. Or actually, when I was a kid, I went to preschool, and it was in a church building, and there was a cross on the top. So there, it is a literal, right, childhood memory right there. Okay? And you know that's specific for you when you have something like that. Old relationships, well, they see a heart, but there's nothing in here that says old relationships to me. Renewal, new cycle, harmonious networks, positive influences. Okay, maybe. Favors earned and returned. I don't know why, but this section here could make me feel about earning favors and returning favors, right? This cup, things are coming in, coming out of the cup, going into the cup. So we're returning favors, we're earning them, we get to pull them out of the cup, and then we get to, return the favor, pay it forward by putting something different in the cup, let's say. All right? So now we figured out how to interpret this card. So that's what I feel like the book is good for when you're first learning and you don't really, because I remember, it's like, you don't really quite get how it works. You need a little bit more guidance. So you refer to the book, but you don't go to the book and memorize all those things. You don't put them on flashcards and try to memorize them. You try to connect with them. You try to connect. Which one connects for me? Which one makes sense with this? So now, again, it's like the taco recipe. I understand why I'm putting the seasoning in. I understand the role of the seasoning. I understand, that I don't want to put as much oregano as I put in tomatoes or tomato sauce, obviously, right? So, we have this idea, giving and receiving favors. Now we understand, to some degree, this card, and we also understand how we came to that interpretation. Okay? Here's the Queen of Wands. We see fire around her. She's holding a wand. She looks authoritative. All right. There's a rose in her hair. So we've got a little bit. We've got this sense of authority, of heat. What does heat mean to us, Does it mean she's dangerous? Does it mean she's evil, like the flames of hell? Seriously and honestly, if that's the interpretation that you get, you can always work. You can work with that. So, but you're kind of like, okay, well, I got a couple ideas. I'm going to check the book. Now, remember, when you check the book, it's not to see if you're right or wrong. That's again, important. Queen of Wands. Wands, Wands. Queen, Queen, Queen. Lady of the Manor. Okay. I mean, that already jives with what I already know about it. Charming, magnetic, and friendly. Wow, that's the opposite of, I was thinking, evil. So, am I wrong? Am I wrong that this is an evil woman? No. That's just another possible way to interpret the card. Loving and honorable. Oh, well, that's weird. I got the opposite. So let me look at it. Let me see if I can see a reason or see something that makes that make sense. Well, roses are related to love. Perhaps, she's got a lot of makeup on, so maybe she's trying to attract, appeal to someone in a loving way. She's also got a heart, looks like, tattooed on her hand. We can also think of the color red as a love color rather than an evil color. I knew a woman who insisted that, red was the color of the devil, so I guess she was taking up space in my brain just now. But we don't have to replace one interpretation with the other. We just learned some different ways that it could be interpreted, right? So that's why I feel the book comes in handy more when you get stuck and you are just kind of like, I don't really understand how this is supposed to work. Here's the King of Coins. We'll look up the King. Let's see. We can see it's coins, it's diamonds, it's money. He's holding this money in front of him. He cares about money. Maybe he's a businessman. Maybe he's just very wealthy. I mean, we assume kings are wealthy, but this guy is interested in making his kingdom richer. He's not interested in making these people happier or whatever. He's interested in the gross domestic product. Let's say. King of Coins. So I told my neighbor I'd help her learn. And of course, she wanted to talk about memorizing, helping her memorize. I said, well, I can help you, but I don't learn it's not how I read tarot. That's not how I learn it. That's not how I would teach it. She's, of course, confused. So, got me thinking. My wheels turning in my head, and so I ended up making this video. Coins. I feel like she's just going to be confused, but I'll do what I can. Dark man. Okay. Right? We see that. Yeah. And he's got very dark, pointy features. Characterful person. Okay? I don't think I know what that means, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to try to memorize it for sure. Master, successful, valor, victory, bravery, experience, intelligence, science. Science. That's interesting. I can take that. Again, I can look at this. I can see if I can see something that connects it to science for me. If I don't, I can reject it. It's fine. If I do, honestly, I don't see science anywhere here, so I'm not going to worry about that as any type of possible interpretation. I'll tell you a secret in a minute, though. Mathematician, business acumen, geometry. Geometry, I could see a little, case for geometry up here. Physics, defect, danger, weakness. Ooh, danger. I like danger for him because he gives me that feeling of danger. It's so easy. It's like, don't make it harder than it needs to be, which is something that I did do a lot in the beginning. I thought I needed a whole catalog of information about a card. Alright, so now I had something to say about science. So then, now we bring in another element, which is the questioner, or the question. So if someone says, well, let's say someone said, I'm a very wealthy woman, and this man has started to express interest in me, and I want to know, does he like me for me, or is he just interested in my money? I mean, that'd be pretty easy to interpret. You flip this over, and you're like, okay, I see a man who's interested in money right there. Does it matter what about, if I listed all those meanings for the King of Coins, you would not be able to answer that question. And yet, when you understand the language of the card and how the card speaks to you, the answer is simple. The answer is right there. So, it does take time. Are you going to understand every single card right off the bat? No. Right in line with this, like I said, I do think it's important to understand various sort of parts of the language of the cards and concepts, such as the parts of the deck and so on and so forth. Ooh, an upside down card for no reason, but just to make me wonder if I should talk about upside down cards. It's your choice. If you're just learning and you don't want to use upside down, don't use upside down. If you want a really simplified way of thinking about upside down cards, I always think of them as, especially with cups. Look, if you turn the cups upside down, everything's going to fall out. Think about it. If you're a woman, you have a purse. If it's upside down, your stuff is everywhere. And it indicates something needs to be done. So the same as if you think of it as black action, it's like upside down cards are like something needs to be done or changed or worked on. And they can just be kind of a focus. But you can also just turn them right side up and just not worry about it until you get a little better at being in tune with your own feelings about the cards as they get turned over. That's not what I was going to say, though. I got off base. I had something that I did absolutely want to say. Oh, right. So you get well, I said that if you get a question, and then you can look for some sort of hint within the picture. Oh, okay. So the very last thing, I saw this video. I was in a group, and we used to have lives, and they're not allowed. They disallowed most people to do lives, but one of the people that I started to follow, after that, I was kind of amazed, and she was doing a class, and she said, "This is gonna make some people mad who are very. Some people are very, very." See, you do. I agree that you should be studying the cards, but the thing is that I believe, you should learn how to read them. Begin to read them. So the quick and dirty is the way to start. Start with quick and dirty. Learn to read the cards. Learn to refine your process. Learn to refine your intuition, also known as listening to your own inner voice and your inner feelings. Because I think people think intuition means a voice is going to send them a direct message, and that's usually not what happens. It's more about awareness of yourself and trusting yourself. Okay? So it'll make people upset when I say this, certain people, because her video was called How I Read Tarot by Making Shit Up and How You Can Too. So, and then she showed by having people ask her a question. She would draw a card. Hi, Miss Moonlight. And she would explain to you how she got an answer. Like, someone would ask, I remember specifically, someone asked a question, she flipped over a card, there was a dog, and she said, the dog jumps out at me, and she basically said what came into her head. She made something up, and that's your intuition. When you relax and say what comes into your head, that is your intuition. And guess what? Sometimes it's wrong. Sometimes it's wrong. That's going to be one of the hardest things, is accepting that sometimes you'll be wrong. But sometimes you'll be right. And the more you practice, the more often you'll be right. Because you'll know what it feels like inside when you're right, when you're wrong. Usually. Sometimes. There are times, Tyler's Tarot, right? He's not for everyone. Some people like him. Some people don't. You know, he's very blunt, and he, curses people out. And, it's really, really easy to piss him off. But it's too funny, because when he really gets a burst of intuition, he'll start saying stuff, and he'll start doubting himself, and he'll be like, who gives a fuck? Almost every time when he's like, who gives a fuck? He's like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Whenever he says that, he tends to be right on key. So sometimes it goes the other way, where the more you feel like you don't know what you're talking about, the more the other person is like, wow, this makes total sense to me. Because the message isn't always meant to make sense to you. It's meant to make sense to the person receiving the message, receiving the reading. So again, if we can relax and kind of open up to the making shit up school of reading tarot, we can find that it's extremely accurate. We're not trying to use intuition. We're not trying to memorize anything. We're just looking for clues, or we're looking for a message, and then we're interpreting it. Exactly as if you were walking in the woods and you said, I don't know what to do about this situation. Give me a sign. We walk for a little ways. We see a bird. we find a wet mitten on the ground, and an acorn falls on our head. Are any of those signs? We have to decide that for ourselves. We have to decide, is that the sign I was looking for? Usually when you get the sign, you may question it, but something in your gut will tell you. You'll feel, this is my sign, and then you have to interpret what it means. So then you're like, is this my sign? So in the beginning, there's all this self-doubt, right? Until you start to do it and listen to and you see that it works, and then you learn to trust yourself. So you have to decide, what part of this card is the sign and what part of it does it mean, using the tools that you learned of symbolism, making shit up, color, number, how it makes you feel, where they're facing, etc. All of these things, right? But you don't have to use all of them. You only have to use one. Another thing is, I do not recommend for beginners. Beginners most love and want to have clarifier cards, but the truth is, they want a clarifier because they don't understand the card. So slow down, take your time, work with that card. Do not draw a clarifier. Clarifiers are best used by people who already kind of know what they're doing and they're looking for further information. Not, give me something else because I don't understand this, because you're just going to make yourself more and more confused. Thank you, Miss Moonlight. Just kind of, like I said earlier, sorting some of my thoughts out because I told my neighbor I'd help her a little bit, and so sometimes it's a little overwhelming to figure out where you want to start from, right? So here's a suggestion. Go to one of the Tarot Oracle's streams that's already streamed, or anybody's stream, right? Anybody's tarot stream where they're doing live questions, but of course, the Tarot Oracle, obviously. Turn the volume down. Just look, watch, see when someone, don't worry about who's asking what or whatever. Don't worry about what he's saying. Just turn the volume down and look at the questions, because it's always like, how do you do it, practice reading or whatever. Look at the question that someone asked, that someone paid their money to ask, which is probably, does so-and-so like me? But everyone thinks does so-and-so like me is a unique question, so just see what they, or it could be other things. Now you're just doing this at home. Read that question, draw that card, and then just look for your clues. Look for your clues and and then interpret it. All right? Think about this. You watched your favorite show. Someone else watched it with you. They said, I can't believe you're watching Lost. Can't believe Kate is such a bitch. You're like, what? Kate was amazing. I love Kate. She's so feisty. She's so strong. She's a survivor. She does what it takes, to keep herself alive. Like, who can fault her for anything she's done? That's your interpretation. And the other person's interpretation is, Kate's a bitch. She's just playing with, she can't choose between two guys and she doesn't have any better story than that. Those are two interpretations. They're completely different. They're interpretations. That's the key. I love Kate too. Right, it's like obvious by my response which side I'm on, because one is like meh and one of is like impassioned and in depth, right? I didn't like Kate at first because I thought she's just bikini girl on the beach and she was just there to like look cute. And I would and be naked all the time, right? I was annoyed, by her because she just didn't seem to have any point. That would be another character that my grown son likes. The other character who I think is useless. Freckles, exactly, right? So you know, you have your interpretation, they have their interpretation. Obviously, their interpretation is wrong, but nobody's interpretation is wrong. See how that makes sense? um, yeah. So I ended up liking Kate. She reminded me of definitely going to just go off trail for a second. She reminded me of Linda. I can't think of her name. The main character from Terminator and Terminator 2. Right, in the beginning, she just kind of didn't seem to have a point, but she did, but we just didn't know yet, you know? And then we had this other character telling us that she was so evil and so terrible, and like a lot of people, the cop, and then a lot of people feel like the things she did were horrible, and again, I'm like, the whole time I'm watching, I was like, wow, that guy is just exaggerating like hell, you know? But other people were like, no, she was horrible. She did this, she did that. And it's like, well, I mean, I perfectly can see why she did all of those things. So she reminds me of the, you know, she's the main character in Terminator. And then she's the mom in Terminator 2. And I can't think of her name, but it's Linda something. She's badass, you know, she's tough and she's a survivor. And she fights to the end, and like, the things she does, Hamilton, exactly. Thank you. Everything she does could look selfish from the outside. I'm sure she would, you know, take another person's life if it meant her own survival. She's a freaking survival. I don't know. The whole time I was watching it is exactly what I was thinking. You got to see layers of Kate. Like with the knowledge of tarot, you reveal the layers in combination with intuition knowledge. Exactly. And like I said, the book can be helpful when you're stuck on something. But again, don't just memorize a bunch of keywords, but look at them, look at the card, and see if any of them connect. And if none of them connect, reject all of them. Reject all of them and find something else. And so Three of Swords is a good example. Three of Swords is always, you know, most people think of it as heartbreak, pain, betrayal, three-party situation, you know, love triangle, usually cheating. I just saw the King of Wands and it looks like a character on it, so I watch. Sort of. But like different. Like his face was distorted a little. But anyway, what was I saying? So knowing that 3 represents growth, I spent a lot of time going, okay, you know, make this make sense in my head. And yeah. And I came to growing pains. The pain like labor. The pain of labor. Labor is the growth. It's like everything that 3 is. You've even got the 3 in the major arcana is the Empress. It represents motherhood. So 3 is the pain of that growth. 3 could also be the pain of knowledge. 3 is also like, you see the 2 swords, they're crossed. So 3 is a tiebreaker. Somebody's going to be hurt when there's a tiebreaker. Someone's going to lose. Someone's going to be unhappy. So, you know, there's more and more and more to think about it all the time. But when you're first starting out, if you want to think of it as heartbreak and read it as heartbreak, then read it as heartbreak. I got my noodles. I'm gonna have to go soon because my noodles are cold. You don't have to have a million meanings or ways to interpret a card. It's all about just it's about learning how to do that. And again, it's fine if you just have kind of a stock answer for some of the cards, especially while you're learning. The key thing is learn the quick and dirty, and then practice doing the readings. And then over time, you can do more in-depth studies into all of the language and all the other things. I'll tell you about it later too. So that's my short hour-long video. Look, we got the Three of Swords, and then we have the Lovers. You know, the thing is too, like, go on. People often say, oh, the Lovers isn't about romantic love. But it can be. It can be if that's how you interpret it. People want to be all, you know, better than everyone else and say it's not really about that. It's about choices. Okay? It can be about choices. It can be about romantic love. Another one drives me crazy. People say because they're trying to make people feel better, you know. But the Death card isn't about death. It can be. I feel like it really waters it down to say it's never about death or about a person's death. And as tarot cards, as tarot readers, I also feel like we need to grow and stretch spiritually beyond just the cards to things like understanding that death isn't evil. Death is a part of life. And that life can't exist without death. It's part of the cycle. It's the circle of life. And everything that death represents that's not literally death, it represents because those things are about what death is about. So, I'm getting nagged to hurry up. Will you go? I'm almost done. Just go, 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 go. I always I told him, I warned him ahead of time I didn't want him to talk because the algorithm will turn off my comments. Okay, so when you're watching this back, if comments are not turned off, please post one thing down below that you learned from this video, or that you maybe already knew but you thought was really important or worthwhile or foundational, worth knowing at the beginning, or that you wish you knew at the beginning of your tarot journey. So, if you have more than one, you can leave them in separate messages. I would like each message to just give me one thing, just to be focused. But it's okay if you want to be like me, because sometimes I'll watch a video and be like, oh, I like this about this video, and then I'll just make another comment. I'll be like, and I like this one, and this one, and this one. So that's fine. But thank you for joining me. Oh, there's the Empress. So, I mean, here's a little bit of a story. I was about to say goodbye, but here's a little bit of a story, right? We've got the Lovers. We've got them meeting. We've got them making the choice to be together. We've got them joining together to create life, right? Then we have the Mother with child. Some people don't like that whole pregnancy metaphor, but we're going to go with it anyway. Who, because of the union now, she's going to be a mother. She's going to bring life into this world, but she knows that that it is going to come with pain, but also she knows that there's purpose to that pain. So she can deal with that pain and prepare for that pain and realize that pain doesn't have to be evil or bad. Sometimes it's just a part of life. I saw a video today that said something about not wanting to do certain things. She's like, I don't want to do any of these things, but I realize that my life is only going to get better when I do a lot of things that I don't want to do. And it just like hit me square between the eyes. You know? Sometimes you got to go through the pain to get the reward. It's just the way it works. All right, so thank you for joining me, everyone. As I said, can I talk to you under me? He would have to get the IP rights to that, and I don't think he wants to go through all that mess. But if you're crafty and you like just want one for yourself and you want to like sort of do it, you can use like make playing cards. Sacred Seed did a video and she showed like how she made her own personal tarot deck. It was pretty cool. As long as it's for your personal use and you just use it for your own understanding and enjoyment, you know, it's possible to kind of put one together. Or you could always do like a handmade oracle type of deck if you wanted to. But that'd be really, you know, kind of rough, but yeah. I think making an actual lost tarot deck would be prohibitive in a lot of ways, but just doing it for yourself, it'd be kind of fun. Thanks, Moonlight. Yeah, check out Sacred Seeds video. If you want me to find the link for it, you can comment on the video when it uploads all the way, when it posts, and I'll look for it and link it if you can't find it yourself. Alright, so, alright, no more, gotta go. Alright, thanks. Thanks for joining the fun today. And until next time, be well.